Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Another great game from one of my favorite tournaments. The 79th edition of Tata Steel Chess, played in Vikenzee in the Netherlands. What a beautiful place too. Boy, I tell you, it's definitely on my bucket list to places to go. It's such a nice town, steel town of course, with the steel plant. And they have this really, really top-notch tournament. It isn't just about the top players. There's a lot of amateur tournaments going on, a whole ton of people. I suggest you check it out on the web. This game here is from round one, as White, Ulyanov, one of the top world-class players, rated 27.55, and as Black from Hungary, I believe. Exciting player, Richard Rapport. He can play some wild chess. He's rated just over 2,700. Let's get to it. It's going to be a King's Indian attack. Something I looked at for a while. I haven't played it, but I used to play this quite often. We'll go through it. Ulyanov is White, Rapport is Black. We'll just go through the opening here. Interesting, though, that G5. Now, that's Rapport's idea in this. If you notice, the knight can't take because the queen's guarding, because this pawn hasn't been moved yet and the bishop can't protect it. So he gets that up right away. D3. Now he has to go H6 to guard the pawn. I like this already. You can tell it's going to be a good game. Knight C3. Bishop. H4 for White. Trying to bust that up. G4 to hit the knight. The knight comes back. D6. Interesting. Let's go back here. I'm not really an expert on openings at all. And I don't normally play this, especially on the black side. But it is the computer's first move. Knight G to E7 is the second choice. E3. I'm sure this is all booked for these guys. And this is a pretty aggressive move now. Knight to F6, H5 looks pretty good. He decides to go F5, and that's a very aggressive move. It reminds me kind of like some Dutch stuff. And I'll tell you, it shows a small advantage for White in the computer, but I like Black. It's very aggressive. You can see Black's got a ton of space. I say he's a little bit behind in development, but so is White. I mean, White's dark squared bishop can't move. He hasn't castled yet. So we'll see how this goes. Knight B3, trying to get his bishop out. Gets the other knight. D4, just trying to open it up. B6. He figures this bishop's pretty hemmed in. I mean, where's it going to go here? Oh, my little arrow a little screwy there. Oh, where's it going to go? There's no place to go but here. B6, a castle, and black castles. Now, Black king is a lot more protected than you think, even though those pawns are pushed up. I like this already. I really do. I like this for Black. I think it's fun to play. Queen E2. I'd probably play Bishop 7, but he decides to try to open it up. Rook to D1. If you notice a lot of the time on these top players, they leave the tension in the center of the board with the pawn captures. Us guys, us amateurs, we usually just capture right away. These guys like to leave the tension. C takes. Now knight to D5. Let's go back here. You could probably take, knight takes, pawn takes. Get that knight in a really good center spot. If E had taken instead, f4. And things start to really open up on white. But after knight to d5, d3, getting rid of that pawn. Queen takes, e4. That's what he wanted. He got rid of that pawn in order to march this down. And this is getting really, really interesting. Knight takes, knight takes. Interesting, not queen takes. But what happens if queen takes? If queen takes, queen goes here, check. Attacking the knight. And if you move the knight, the rook. So things are always so simple as they seem. Knight takes, queen c2. Now there's some pressure on that d pawn, granted. But I think Rapport has done very well. Very well indeed. What to do is black. Bishop a6. Put some pressure on that pawn. Knight comes up. Queen. b3. As well, white's still trying to develop. He still hasn't developed his dark squared bishop yet. Now, it's a small pain in the neck for white here. This bishop that's coming down. And this knight's pinned. But as you can see, there's no pawns to harass it. So it's really okay for now. And white can rearrange his pieces here to negate that bishop. Knight c6. He's hitting the knight right away. A bishop. And now knight e5. So that knight's in a good spot as well. It just shows a small advantage for white. Even though those black pawns are pretty far advanced, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Knight e2 wants to get to f4. Knight d3 right away. Hitting that bishop twice. Pretty much forces the take, and then knight d4 just to cut off that queen. Plus it's a nice centralized square. And then knight on d3 is also a monster too. Rook a to e8. And this is something that the top three choices on the computer, it just changed. This is a move I think probably Yanov took some time, I think, with. Sometimes you just can't stand a piece that's just right in your game. He decided to take the knight. And after pawn takes, queen takes, it still shows a small advantage for white, but I'll tell you the truth, that knight is gone. And we'll see how it goes from here. Bishop b7, bishop takes, queen takes, knight e2. He's rerouting the knight around to go to f4. Rook f6, knight f4. Now that knight is really, really well placed. Granted, he only has a knight and a pawn for a rook, but not too bad. Queen. White doesn't want to trade queens. When you're down the exchange, I should say, even if you have a pawn for it, you need that other rook and the queen. You just don't want to exchange. So he comes back. Rook to c8. a4 for Ulyanov. Rook c5. Getting that rook right in the action. Rook d1. Queen goes to f3. Interesting. I'm not sure if I would have done that. I might have gone a5 to disrupt his pawns. Maybe king h7 just to get out of the way. Queen f3. Knight to d5. Now that you notice that black queen is running out of room. Rook f7. Rook c2. Now there's really nowhere for that queen to go. a6. Knight takes. Queen e4. Doesn't want to trade. Queen e5 tries to trade again. Rook goes to d4. a5. Now the queen gets behind it on d3. It looks like black's in trouble. Remember, he's up the exchange, but his position is deteriorating. His rooks are totally discoordinated. Rook c6, knight d5, back again. King comes up, knight c3, rook f6. He's pretty much doomed now. A rook d5. And that's where Richard Rapport resigns. To give you an idea, after queen e6, say, rook takes a5, and black's position just falls to pieces from here. So excellent maneuvering game from Ayanov with that sacrifice exchange. I'm not sure Rapport answered back in the best way, but when the clock's ticking, that's why we can second guess all these guys. But when you're playing the game, it's tough to see all the right moves. Anyway, folks, there's one of the games from round one of the Tata Steel 79th edition of Tata Steel in Vikenzee in the Netherlands. I hope you enjoyed it. Look for other games, and also if you go on livestream.com and punch in Tata Steel chess, you'll be able to see the whole 5 hours or so of commentary with Yasser Seirawan and other grandmasters. And as I always say, folks, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.